Hey, everybody. Cindy Ashton here from Cindy Uncorked, and I am super jazzed that you have joined us for our very first Facebook Live around the whole topic of Cindy Uncorked. And today's first provocative topic is joined with me. Our special guest is Dana Ferrant, and today we're going to talk about, has the Me Too movement gone too far? So hello, Dana Ferrant.
Hi, Cindy Ashton.
I'm so excited that you're here.
Me too. It's always fun when we get together.
I know. We always cause trouble together.
Absolutely. Pushing the envelope.
I know. So before we jump in, I actually want to talk about why are we doing this today out of all days and what's this all about? So for those of you, what could it be?
What could it be?
What could it be? So for those of you joining us, I see a bunch of people coming on already. So today is the big launch of Cindy Uncorked on my brand new TV network, which doesn't feel that new because I got signed a year ago, is E360 TV. And we are like live. Yay. Sarah L., who is working on both Dana's team and mine, says, woohoo, my two favorite peeps. So today, a bunch of press releases go out, and Cindy Uncorked is now live on Roku and Apple TV and Fire Stick and all these different things. I'm just trying to get the information. So you're welcome to go and look on it. Now, the reason, I don't know why things are acting funny.
It's Mercury retrograde.
It's Metro Mercury. I will have to type later. What exactly, the information is, but Cindy Uncorked season 2 launched today, and my special guest on episode 1 was you, Dana Ferrant.
Yay!
I know, it's super exciting.
It was so much fun.
I know, it was so much fun. So the topic that we did on the show that is not the topic we're doing today is the ugly truth about the self-help world. So, that's definitely a topic you want to tune in and find out more about. It's on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, all those places on your smart TV. You just have to find the app E360 TV. When I can figure out how to do my on-screen update, then I will post what that is. But I know a lot of you are coming in because we want to talk about the Me Too campaign. And, Dana, tell us a little bit before we jump into this about your story and why you're so passionate about this topic before we dive in. And then I'm really excited to see our viewers typing in the chat room and really getting into the conversation with us before we, as we dive into this topic.
Awesome. Thanks, Cindy. So I, like a lot of people, I have my own history with sexual abuse. And growing up in the religious cult that I grew up in, my family was not really a great safe container. So I was abused by my stepbrother, and then compounded with the fact that my parents didn't see fit to actually do anything about it when I said what was going on. So that's kind of the double layer for me. And then, we fast forward a little bit where I was reaching out for all kinds of different therapy and trying to find a way to actually untangle this from my body and the effects that it was having. And I ended up in all places. I ended up in the kink world. And for those that don't know what kink is, we think 50 Shades of Grey. And it seems crazy that this is the place where I actually got a lot of healing for my sexual trauma and was able to get it out of my body, recreate the stories, but have a different outcome so that I was able to unlock it from my system. So that's where, for me, it was, it's my story.
No, I think it's beautiful. And I think that lends a lot of credibility to you talking about the Me Too campaign, because you do have such, I don't want to say a rich history of abuse, but such a in-depth history of abuse. And I think there's something to be said about understanding that you understand on a deep level about that. So tell me, why do you think that the Me Too campaign has gone too far? Let's just start. Let's just dive right into this.
Okay. So first of all, I want to just say, I think the Me Too campaign has been a phenomenal movement. As far as movements go, it's actually done a lot for awareness.
Absolutely.
But that's where it's stopped for most people, is that it's only been about awareness. So, okay, so great. Now you're aware that you are not the only one, which is an important piece of the healing.
I agree.
But if that's as far as you go with it, now what? Now you're traumatized because now you know the rest of the world is also traumatized. But we need to go beyond just being angry about the fact that this happened. We need to create change, and we need to heal.
Yeah, and I think that what's happened for a lot of people is that we have been triggered. Because so the great news is that everyone's saying me too, and it's giving us a voice and it's giving us strength that we can actually share these things and not feel ashamed by them, because we realize, unfortunately, it's happened to just about everybody, from things as little as, and I don't want to belittle it, but something as simple as being sexually harassed up to what you've been through. Yeah. So, and I think it's disturbing, and it's wonderful that we're able to have this conversation. But I don't know about you, Dana, but I actually found myself getting really triggered, and memories I didn't even realize of abuse and other stuff that I've been through was like, oh my God, I didn't even know. I totally had blocked that out, or I had forgotten that. And I know for me personally, thankfully, I have you as my coach who was, who kept me straight and kept me through it. But I think a lot of us has gotten triggered from this.
Absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head, is that, when we get triggered, but we don't have a safe space to actually untangle it, unpack it, then what happens, and this is the danger, what happens is that you take all of that anger, all of that rage, and you're lashing out at whatever is right in front of you. And that might be, lashing out at, the next man who holds the door open for you, unsuspectingly. It might be, lashing out in some other way. It might be lashing out at something that's completely unrelated, but all of that anger is not being channeled. And it's not healthy for us to take our anger and our pain and throw it on social media.
Right. And so part of it, when we were talking about, has the Me Too campaign gone too far, are we talking then about the fact that, yes, it's great that we're standing up for ourselves and we're taking a stand, but does it also mean that people are being falsely accused, or somebody who's a really good man who says, Dana, you look beautiful today, is getting his head ripped off?
There's all of it. I mean, we have the two sides. We have, a lot more exposure is being laid on the people who it should be laid on. But there's also that lashing out of, somebody who's unsuspecting, or maybe it's like borderline behavior, and it's inappropriate, but then our reaction to it is like extreme for the behavior. And that's where I think things have just, where that danger is in going too far. And are we putting ourselves as women, are we putting ourselves at risk at going backwards, because men are not going to want to hire women. They're not going to want to help women. And yet these are the things that we need to get to the equality.
Right. Well, it was really interesting because there was that whole scandal, I think about a week and a half ago, with Tony Robbins and the Me Too campaign. Why don't we just go for it while we're talking about this?
Let's go for it.
And it was interesting because I did actually watch a video. I got to see it before it was taken down. And I felt it was sad that it was taken down, because I do think that people should have had the opportunity to see it and voice their own opinion.
Yeah.
But there was this one point where Tony was talking about, well, if you have 3 candidates and one of them is a beautiful woman, you're not going to hire that beautiful woman. And that kind of made me want to puke and punch him out, although I'm a pacifist, so I really wouldn't have. And he's 3 times my size and can pummel me with like one little hand. But, but that really upset me, because I think I think there's something to be said around that.
There is. And I think that, the lashing out at him is the prime example of where, these women who have not healed, and I say women because it's been primarily women.
Right. But, and let's also honor there are
men as well.
And boys, and right.
Absolutely. It's affecting everybody. But the voices that we've heard have primarily been women, and they've been lashing out at Tony and saying, he's done this, he's done this, he's done this. And there's a number of things in that. One, we have to look at context. He's dealing with 12,000 people in that room that he has to monitor. And also it's a split second decision of how he's going to handle it. Could he have handled it better? Thinking of it, maybe. I probably would have handled it. It's very similar in that it's like, okay, we got to squash this before it becomes a big, in the midst of a 4-day transformational process.
Right. I mean, I know for me personally, I think that I would have loved to see it being delivered with more feminine energy.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see the delivery in a different way.
That exercise, the pushing exercise, even if he'd have just taken half a second to explain what he was doing and why he was doing it, that would have transformed that piece a little bit. But again, we all fuck up, and this is the piece. We fuck up, but then, sorry, I didn't ask if I could swear.
It is Cindy Uncorked. We like to get uncorked.
Right, I'm totally uncorked. So, it's our moments of fucking up, because the social media lashes so harshly, we're not given the space to make boo-boos. We're not given the space to go, okay, well, that was slightly off, slightly inappropriate. No, it becomes this massive thing.
Right.
And it doesn't help us to heal. Like, all of these people who are lashing out are not actually healing. They're just revving up all of their anger, and they're just getting more about it.
Right. So where do we go from here? Because we have this amazing awareness now. We have women talking, we have men talking, we have people talking and bonding and connecting, but we also have people being shut down by the anger and the trauma that has come up. And anger is good because it propels us forward. But if that anger shuts people down who are normally good men, then, I know young boys who are like, I'm 19, 20. I don't even want to ask a girl out. What happens if I kiss her the wrong way and I'm going to be accused of assaulting her? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's such a fine line. So let's talk about, how do we stand up for ourselves, but deal with the trauma and deal with the anger, so we really step up and have this conversation and be able to make a deeper change, as opposed to staying in the rage all the time and not having change at all. And if anything, the change is going to be negative because we have a lot of people shutting down because of it.
Okay, so in just a couple of sentences, we'll change the world. No, so
come on, Dana.
I love it.
Hey, I'm seeing some
little subject.
Oh, it's so
yeah. Hey, so I would say the bigger scale is that it's like, instead of taking it to social media, turn inwards and use the multitude of tools that are available for clearing the charge out of your system. If you have been traumatized yourself, please go and seek professional help so that you can move that through. Now, if you're at the stage where you've already done some of your work and you're working through your emotions, then the next thing is this piece of, let's get connected to a real person. Let's connect in person and have conversations. Not the excited emotion, but tell me more, asking questions, finding what is behind their motivation, leaning in. But first of all, we have to recognize where our emotional charge is. And if we have any emotional charge, do not type. If you're angry, do not type.
Breathe. One, two,
breathe.
Three.
Yeah, like move it through. Right? Like, move it through, move it out.
So, by the way, Katie Bray, who's another guest, an amazing guest coming up in a few weeks, she's like so true and all this stuff. And my dad is giving us all these thumbs up. So Dad's on board with this. Very cool. Hi, Dad.
It's tough. It's tough.
It's a tough balance, especially if we've been so traumatized and shut down and we're so triggered. Oh my God. Sometimes triggers takes weeks to undo, or years. And then, but I think that there's something to be said about when you feel triggered, just step away from your text messaging, step away from social media, because it really blows everything up and makes it worse and perpetuates it in a way that's it's again, more of the fake news and coming from that place of anger. Right.
Yeah. I think there's there's a place where we need to have that voice. We need to say, okay, this needs to change. And it needs to come from this space where it's like, okay, this has happened. This is not okay. Now, what do we do to change it? And I know a lot of women have been saying to me, but we need our voice. We need to be heard. It's our time to speak up. And I just want to hold out and say, if we continually do this pendulum swing back and forth, we get nowhere. So at some point, one side needs to say, okay, I hurt and I'm going to deal with my hurt, and we need to break this cycle.
Right. You know, the other interesting thing, and I'm just going to tell a little interesting story, is something that happened to me a couple of years ago on a date. And some people, when they hear this story, they're like, oh my God, did you feel violated? And I'm like, I didn't at all. But I think that this is a situation that I think somebody would have called the cops on. And so I was on eHarmony. It was 2 years ago, actually. Mm-hmm. And I met this guy, and we met and I'm always really careful. I won't let him pick me up. I'll go separate car. I'm really bright about stuff like that. And so we were in this restaurant, and, we got along really great, but he wasn't really the right person for me. But I let him walk me to my car, and that's because I parked on a main artery, like a main road, and there was lots of people coming, kind of going back and forth. And I just said, it was lovely to meet you. When I put my hand out, so to be very clear with my body language, I was not wanting more. And he literally pulled me into a kiss. And so it was interesting. And so I literally had to push him off of me. And I wasn't afraid because I was in public. People were walking by. It was New York City, for God's sakes. I mean, I actually felt safer living in New York than I do here, where there's nobody around. It's like pitch black and there's not the bright lights. Because there's always somebody around. But I didn't feel violated. And here's what's really interesting. Because I took care of the situation. I was, and so here's what I kind of reflected back on this person. So the reason why I didn't go on a second date, because he was a great guy. We had a lot in common, including having a music degree and both being composers and writing music, is because he was really miserable in his life. He was doing a 9-to-5 job that he hated, and I was like, I don't want to be with someone who's actually not living their passion. That's just one of my values. I need to be with someone who's really lit up. But when you're a really unhappy person, you're not in your body. And I don't know how to explain that anymore. But when you're not really in your body, you're not paying full attention. Your senses you're not connected. Your senses aren't, right? So if somebody would have put their hand out to me, I would have understood that they didn't want me to hug them, because I'm a hugger. Right. I tend to be a hugger. So I would know that. But that's because I breathe every day. I meditate every day. I have rough days, but I've got you to coach with. But in general, I'm a pretty present person. But I think that this is a person who I honestly don't think that he was a bad guy. And I think he was just really excited about meeting a fellow musician. And I just think that he was so excited that he crossed the line, but I didn't. But again, I protected myself. But again, that's a situation where another woman who hadn't worked through a lot of her stuff and wasn't as present of what was happening in the situation would have went home and said, this guy tried to assault me on the street and da-da-da. And I don't know. I mean, people are watching this. They might say, Cindy, yeah, he tried to. I don't know. I didn't feel that way. I just thought this was somebody who wasn't really in his body. But this is another example from the outside. But
he did. But at the same time, you were also aware that he wasn't malicious in his intent.
No.
And it was a misunderstanding. It was a poor judgment. And this is the thing. It's like,
but what happens if that had happened in the workplace? Right.
Right.
And it wasn't a kiss, but it was a hug. And I was like, no, we got to stop this here. Would somebody have else reported him for sexual harassment? And had he not done it again after that was clear? There's all these fine lines, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the trouble is right now, is we've got a lot of us triggered, a lot of us angry. And I think there's fine lines where it's like, it would have been, if I had worked with him, it would have been like, okay, dude, let's sit down and I want to have a conversation, because I really don't believe that this person is a predator. I don't believe that this person, I really think he's a great guy who is just really unhappy and not paying attention. It's just, and I think
he made a bad judgment, and this is what's happening, is that some of the things, not all, like there's lots of cases, the majority of cases are valid and true. Absolutely. But then there are these pieces that are going through, and that's what's going to create another backlash in the other direction. That's what I'm concerned about.
Right.
Is that even if it's 2% are false claims, that 2% is going to create a huge backlash in the other way.
Right.
And we do need to start saying, okay, well, what just needs a refinement in education, and where do we actually need to, do something more?
Right. And I think that part of that is we have to have proper sexual education.
Yes.
You know, because right now, if I remember my sex ed, it was all very shameful and gaga goo goo. Oh my God, there's a penis, you know, and it was very much here's STDs and da 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 da. Like it was very much fear, fear, fear. I don't ever remember having consent conversations. I don't ever remember us doing exercises to learn how to communicate about stuff like that. You know, I think that we in general do not know in our society how to communicate about sex and how to communicate clearly. I mean, I was on a date a few months ago and we had a great date, really great date. I would totally go out with this guy again, but because I've learned good communication skills, I really set it out around what's your dating purpose? Are you monogamous or polyamorous? Because I'm monogamous type, not a right or wrong. It just is, you know, what's your intentions? And that seems like a really heavy conversation to have on a first date, but I really liked him. But I was like, before I go on a second date with him, it's really important that I have that conversation because I think part of what's happening is that we don't have good communication skills, period. And then I discovered that we had some misalignments, right? And I was like, cool, then I just have a friend now. And then that was the end of it. And then there was no miscommunication or any trauma or anything created from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The communication thing is such an important piece. And, you know, if people could get to a place where they could talk about, you know, this is what I like, this is what I'm looking for. And of course, you know, what we didn't touch on is that, of course, in my background, I was a dominatrix, and negotiation is key. Like you spend hours talking about what do you want? What do you not want? What's okay? What's not okay? When you talk to that level at that, you know, neutral as if you're talking over coffee, because that's actually, you know, it's talking over coffee.
Right.
It becomes a different conversation than hoping the other person knows just magically what you're thinking or what you're wanting.
Right. And I think that's a really good point, is that we're not taught negotiation skills. I'm going to just plop your website up for people to kind of check you out. And you have a really great free download on client attraction, actually, which is like, you're really great at clearing people's crap to attract money. I would never be where I am in any possible way without your coaching. So yeah, danaferrant.com. So, you know, to continue this conversation is, you know, what it comes down to is that yes, we're standing up for ourselves, but we can't come from the trauma. We can't come from panic, and we can't come from anxiety. We have to come from that soft power. And unfortunately, things like 50 Shades of Grey is making the dominatrix that whole world seem really dirty and bad. And so the first key to that, so one of the keys that you just mentioned is, you know, for us to really stand in our power and really change things around sexual abuse and sexual harassment, part of it is knowing what your negotiables and non-negotiables are. In the dominatrix world is that they really talk about safe words and what's going to happen, what's not going to happen before they go into an intimate scene. But this is also should happen in all parts of your life, partially for prevention, but partially so that you can always be clearly communicating no matter what the situation, so that when you do decide to speak up about the Metoo stuff and do decide to have a voice, it comes from a very strong place. So do you want to expand on that, or do you want me to keep talking?
Well, yeah, I just think, you know, when you come from that strong, you know, place where you have healed your stuff and you talk about what's going on, you're heard on a very different level than when you come and you bring all of your baggage, because people feel it. They can feel your hurt. They can feel your pain. And when you're coming from that victim place, everybody just starts tuning it out. It's like, oh, right.
This person's whining again.
Whining, and and you get
tuned in. Or they're being a bully, or they're being aggressive, or it's another bitch woman in the workplace, right?
Which is not helping. Right. And so that's why it's even more important that we have more voices who are coming from the place of, you know, they've already moved through it, and yes, and we want change, but saying it in ways you can hear.
Right. And so one of the things, because I started coaching with you just over 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, 3 years and 4 years ago. And we were really intense for a while, and now we just do check-ins but it's interesting because, you know, I've gone through a lot of trauma. Like, let's not even talk about all the heart surgeries I have and all the physical issues I've had with my body and all the scar tissue, which you've done a great job helping me work on scar tissue. So she was a massage therapist also for 20 years. You know, so I think that, part of my challenge with the whole self-help world, going back to the topic of season 1, episode 1, that's airing today on e360tv.com, we talking about the ugly truth around the self-help world. And I think that tying it back into today's episode that's airing, and I will give you guys the link so you guys can see it. Hold on. There you go. So that's where you can see episode 1. But I think that part of the self-help world that I really don't like is that it's all about your thoughts create your reality. Your thoughts create your reality. And while we are very powerful people, if you have trauma, and it's been scientifically proven, if you have trauma in your body, it actually changes your neurology. It shifts your cells, and you could try to think positively all you want, but until you deal with trauma at the cellular level and release it, I know for me, for years, I was feeling angry and I was feeling this and I was feeling that. And I would try to think positively and I would try to meditate and do all these things, and they weren't working until I worked with you and a couple of others to deal with it on a deeper level. And I think that there's something to be said, around how do we then, for people who've been through a lot. So I've talked about some of the trauma that I've been through with my body and all the health problems that I've had. And, even just being an entertainer and dealing with all the sexual harassment and the insults and all the auditions and having an ass too big. I personally think my ass rocks. But, not having big enough boobs, not being skinny enough, not being, and then copious times having producers wanting to sleep with me. And I'm like, nope, not going to happen, and having to fight that and losing gigs. And, I still remember there was a really big gig that everybody who was sleeping with this guy was a big producer, and I won't say who, and he was like, all the girls would go and do drugs with him and sleep with him, and I never did that. And they all got cast for this big show at the Sky Dome. I don't know what the hell it's called now in Toronto, but it's a massive stadium. There's 11,000 people there, and I missed out, because I chose, and I don't either way. I've gone through a lot of trauma. What you helped me through was releasing on that deeper level so that I could be more grounded in who I am and come from that more present, more powerful place where I'm going to be heard. So tell our listeners, because I know we're going to wrap it up in the next few minutes, like, how do you start to release trauma on a more cellular level and not this fake, your thoughts create your reality, let's just all be positive, even though your cells have been permanently changed and need to be changed back?
So I would say, first of all, the work that you and I did, that's after you've already kind of cleared the surface stuff and you started, you had done quite a bit of work before you started working with me. And then we were able to get in a lot deeper. So I would say first and foremost is to do, just some gentle breathing, start to drop into your body and connect. And then, once you start connecting with your body, you can go through some exercises. Energy, it gets imprinted, and these traumas get imprinted energetically. So you can imagine being able to kind of grab the energy and pull it out of your body, pull out the trauma, pull out the anger that you have about it, and, throw all that into an incinerator or whatever visual you want with it. And that's going to help to start to move it on that first layer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can do
Dana,
the deep level. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't. Yeah. But you actually have a self-clearing process on your website. So, and it's free.
Yeah. And that will
actually help you. Yeah. So if you actually go to danaferret.com, it's under free goodies. There's something called free on your, just click on the free button and you can download, you can even listen to it without opting in, which is amazing. So it'll actually help if you can listen to that 2-3 times a week, it'll start to clear that first layer and get you really in your body. So I think that's a really, really great resource. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, when you're ready to go deeper, let somebody guide you, let somebody support you. I think part of the thing with sexual trauma in particular is that we try to do it all by ourselves. And I don't necessarily think that that's the kindest thing for people to do. So whether you work with me or work with somebody else, find somebody who specializes in this field and let yourself go through the process.
Right.
Because it changes your whole life. Really does.
Absolutely. Dana, do you have any final words for us?
I think the thing that I really want to stress to everybody is always my underlying message that you're not broken, you're not fucked up.
Thank you.
There may be things that you want to change that you want to release, but you're still a beautiful, perfect, whole human being as is.
I love that. So for those of you who want to see my interview on Cindy Uncorked, the episode is out today. You can go to Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV. We really go into the self-help world and how the ugly side of it. And it's important to watch this because I think there's too much manipulation and people are losing their power actually quite a bit. So if you've got Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, just find the app E360 TV. You're watching this, so you're on a device. You could also just go to e360tv.com and type in the show name. It's season 2, episode 1. If you want to connect with Dana or get her free stuff, go to danaferrett.com. We're going to be doing these weekly. Next week, we've got Dr. Carrie Fullerton, and we're going to be talking about dieting and how dieting actually causes you more health problems and does it actually work and is actually set up to make you fail. So we're going to go into detail about that. It's the best thing for you to do if you want to be seeing these weekly lives is actually sign up on our website at cindyuncorked.com. I only email people once a week, so don't worry. It's not one of those, don't you love those people who email you 3 times a day? It's like, do you think I have time to read all your emails? So once a week, you're going to get like a links to the YouTubes of the replays. You're going to get links to the upcoming episodes. We've got a lot of really great provocative topics. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And Dana, thank you for always being my best friend and my healer and being a guest and just being amazing. I love you very much. And we're all very, very grateful for you.
I adore you too, Cindy. Thank you.
All right. Bye and lots of love, everybody.